All right, so you are good to go whenever you're ready.
Oh, we're winging it over here.
Winging it.
We're winging it. All right, everybody. Welcome to the SANDCAST podcast. I'm here with Travis and Tri. You're probably a little confused. This is Savvy Simo opening up the podcast for today. I'm super fired up for our Q&A segment. So how are you guys doing today?
You. Dude, fantastic. Wait, is Simo how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
We should probably get that down.
No, this whole time.
I don't even know. How do you pronounce your last name, Travis? I don't even know.
Mewhirter.
It took me so long to figure that out.
Yeah.
Mewhirter. Just don't look at how
Well, I
it's
think one of the questions, I thought it was like Mewhirter. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, well,
I've been trying to figure out because I think Tyler, I don't know who that is. Brother, cousin, they asked a question.
Older brother, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, it's funny because like when I tell people how to pronounce it, like at restaurants and they ask their name, I just say Mewhirter because it looks like how it's spelled. But if you want to pronounce it right, like I said, just don't look at how it's spelled.
Yeah. Confuse me every time.
Yeah, but we got so the day after this episode airs, we have Thanksgiving. So I just kind of wanted to ask you guys what you're doing for Thanksgiving. And you got to do like the classic, like middle school. What are we thankful for? On the SANDCAST. Try's obviously thankful for Bentley.
I got 2 dogs out here in Hawaii. They both have Chihuahua blood, so lots of noise.
But Stav, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
I am going to be home in San Diego. Might be a little different this year because not sure if the grandparents are coming just because of COVID and everything, which is quite a bummer. I don't remember the last time we've had a holiday without them. So we'll see how it goes. Always with my mom's side of the family with all the cousins. So I think it's at my house this year. I love Thanksgiving. I think it's awesome. I just think just makes you feel good. I love Christmas too, but Thanksgiving might be my favorite. The food's amazing. But yeah, going to be definitely a smaller group this year, which is a bummer, but we'll make the best of it.
Yeah, awesome. Try what do you have going on down there in the islands?
I'm out here in Hawaii. We're gonna keep it real low key. Just I think my parents and I, and Gabby and baby. I think we're gonna do it with my sister at her house, but there was like a little mini COVID outbreak at the school, so they're scared that their kid might have it, and everyone's just doing a COVID Thanksgiving this year. We're just gonna keep it real intimate. And then run it back next year, back to normal, hopefully.
Yeah. Do you normally go to Hawaii for Thanksgiving, or do you kind of rotate?
Lately, we've been doing Thanksgiving with Gabby's family on the mainland.
Okay.
Her sister's like a professional cook, so that's usually the right call is to hang out with her. And then we come to Hawaii for Christmas with my family. But this year, we just wanted to be in Hawaii at this time, so Hawaii holidays is for us is you go to the beach all day as a family and then you just eat at night.
That's perfect.
Christmas, Thanksgiving.
Sounds epic.
That's awesome.
It's all the same. And we do that on regular days too, so it really isn't much different.
Yeah, it's a bigger meal.
Yeah, right. It'll be good though.
Yeah, I'm out here in Myrtle. So we took family reunions to Myrtle Beach from when I was like 5 till they still do it every year, but I haven't been able to go since I moved to Florida because they always go in the summer. And then obviously we're traveling for volley during the summer, so I haven't been able to go in a long time. And then we planned it for Thanksgiving this year. And so we made it. And so it's just my family drove down. So I got little brother, older brother, sister-in-law comes in on the day this airs. And then Delaney's here. And then we might have Adam Roberts and Jade over for Thanksgiving, actually. So complete the fam.
Hell yeah, we should get him on the podcast, run it back number 2.
Yeah, we got to get him back on because, dude, so I've been on the flight. I was really bored. So I was compiling all of our best transcript notes and just putting them like one file after the other. And I was like, we definitely got to have Adam back on to get his stories because we just have him and Andy together, and so Adam couldn't really shine and give us some good stories. So we got to get Adam back on.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah,
big time. He's the wealth of knowledge. He's like a volleyball encyclopedia.
He is. It's crazy.
Although I saw him on the weakest link. I don't think he wanted any of us to see that.
Did you watch it?
I didn't even know. I was just watching The Weakest Link out here. And they're like, professional volleyball player. I don't know. What? No way. But then I won't give away what happens, but
Yeah.
A-Rod's probably not happy about it.
Nick gave us a hint in the last episode.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Nick.
Poor
That
Adam.
sounds fun. I got to get up to Myrtle one of these days.
Yeah, it's awesome out here. I love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Dude, well, we got some fan questions, and I heard your brother threw in some. Where's he at? He could do a live question if he really wants to be a part of it.
Hold on, let me call him. I can see if he can come back.
I know. I was looking. His questions were good. I was gonna ask his first because it's
I don't
time.
know where he is. I think he's downstairs somewhere.
He probably doesn't want to.
Probably not.
Well, I can ask one of his questions first. Oh, so cute. So speaking of family, Thanksgiving, your brother asked a question, and it's kind of perfect timing. It's off season right now. So he asked, how does your off season training differ versus in season? So I think that's kind of important because even I'm having a tough time, trying to figure that out right now with everything going on. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think is probably the most.
What was the beginning of it? My baby's diaper smelled so bad that it completely took over my brain.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It was just what's the difference between? What did you say?
Go ahead.
No, it's just how does your off-season training differ versus in-season?
Oh, got it. Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, so off-season is, with beach volleyball at least, like our schedules change a lot. So the amount of time that we have off is like different every off-season, and then you have like COVID, which is just like a whole nother story. But basically, we look at the time that we have away from tournaments, right? Once we enter the off season, and then we kind of break it down to, okay, what tournament do we want to be peaking for, ready to go? Whether that's the first tournament of the year or the third or something. There might be some warm-up tournaments, and then we go from where we want to be peaking, and we work backwards from there. Like we want to have generally a month and a half of like really good training, and then you go from that month and a half of really good volleyball training, and then what kind of shape do I want to be in when that volleyball training starts, and then you work backwards from there in terms of when you're going to start your weight room training, and then figure out how much time you want off too, like how much mental time you want off. It varies for different people. Like we talked to Misty, I was thinking she'd be like more like April, like I never want to take time off. April takes time off, but probably less than most. Like she's in Brazil right now training. Yeah. And but Misty was like, I'll take all off season. I don't even want to think about volleyball. She'll take like 3 or 4 months, she said, right?
Yeah, she'd go from like November to February. Well, she would take off she wouldn't touch a volleyball. Right. And she would lift a ton.
Yeah. So, and for me this year, I'm thinking, okay, well, this year's a little different, but in off season, I feel like I'm in a point in my career, especially now that I'm split blocking, where I still have a lot to learn. So I'm trying to like see new things and wrap my brain around new things before I get out to the court. So I'll throw in more video during that time. And then whatever I'm seeing on video, if I'm trying to change a move, like a defensive step or just like how I distribute my body weight on defense or something like that, then I'll try to translate that into the gym. So I'm working on my game without actually playing volleyball. Because once you get into a season, like an 8-month world tour season mixed with AVP, like it's a grind mentally. So you don't want to be burnt out at all going into it. For me, I want to be like missing volleyball.
Yeah.
So it's like, how much can I do and get done and like get a little bit better without being burnt out, like without not being excited by the time everything starts.
Yeah. I still have no idea what to do with off season versus season, because I have the hardest time in season saying no to practices, and I'll be like, all right, like I'm going to train Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday in the sand, but then like a really good team like a Billy and Stafford will be like, hey man, like we need one more for Wednesday. Like, well, I can't say no to Billy and Stafford, so then I'll play Wednesday, and this happens every week. And then like 4 weeks in, everything starts to hurt because I haven't taken a day off in like 30 days. And
you didn't know how to rehab for the first like 4 years of your career.
Mhm.
So I'm still trying to figure it out. The off season though, what I figured out is that like I need to lift heavy. Jake Gibb has actually done a really cool thing where he's been posting his workouts and saying what's been working for him, and that's been like gospel for me. Because Jake was like, I'm doing really heavy eccentric lifting and isometric lifting, and then I actually have a meeting with Christian Hartford, the USA trainer, and he's going to put together an off-season program for me. Because I was telling you, I was like, right now in the weight room, I'm like, here's a bar, I'm gonna pick it up like 30 times, and then I'll be good. You know?
Oh, that guy over there did that exercise. I'll just jump in on that.
Yeah. So I think
it's hard. You just get so lost. You're just so lost. It's hard to figure it out when you're like, especially like I don't have structure right now coming out from our fall training, and I'm like, okay, even if you give me the exercises, I don't have access to a weight room. So what am I gonna lift like a gallon of water? I don't really know what to do. So I'm still learning too. It's tough.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, I would say, a blessing in disguise in terms of like you're going to be transitioning to our lives, which is like everything's on the table or on you. You know, you have to create all the structure and just start from scratch with it. So you're kind of getting a hint of it, but you still have that structure of school and whatnot. At least when you come back, you know it's there. But yeah, one day it all gets pulled.
No, absolutely. Travis, what were you saying though? I interrupted you.
Just kind of what I'm going for this off season is I'm going to try to lift pretty heavy and to get like a good base of power and try to gain a little bit more weight. Cause I finished this year, like the lowest I've been in a while was like 195 for a while. And so try to get back up to like 210-ish with like a lot of squats, trap bar deadlifts, front squats, and RDLs. And then I never really lift upper body anymore. That's just for like making sure my shoulder stays on, which isn't too difficult. So I try to lift like 3 days a week legs and then don't jump until like maybe mid-January, early February, because jumping is what just like kills my knees. And so I'm going to try to stay off jumping and do like build a base of power. And then once in season, I'm going to have to ask Christian. I'll let you guys know what I figure out.
Well, then it's pretty like individual specific then, because, you know, if you're not jumping, I mean, everyone's, whether it's just you or you and your partner, it's totally specific to your individual injuries or needs or whatever it is. So that's another interesting point too.
Yeah.
I think the consistent part is that, well, it depends on age too, right? You ask all the older guys, they're not taking breaks. They're taking the weight training and all that really seriously because they have to. It's like when you're in high school or middle school, like you don't even warm up, right? You just sprint out there and do it. So you got to take that into consideration. Like Taylor Crabb still like has the body of like a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's light and skinny and
he's insane.
So I don't think he does as much training, but I think everyone wants to build strength and kind of rehab and feel healthy in the off season, be really strong, probably at your highest weight going into season, and then maintain on your off days, try to maintain as best you can. That's kind of the goal once you're in season.
Yeah.
So for some people, that means lifting the day after a tournament and like every off day. And for some people, it's just once or twice. Some people it's light. Sometimes people it's heavy. But the idea is you want to maintain as much of that muscle mass as possible because the season's going to suck it off of you basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. So Key Volleyball, they asked, what do you think is a skill that people often forget to train? So kind of going off of this off-season training, what do you think people forget to do most, whether it's in the weight room or on the court, whatever it is?
I think off the top of my head, I think serving is probably the most often forgot about skill, which is ironic because it's the only one where you don't need anybody to help you with. You can just grab a bag of balls and go out and serve. And I think it's arguably the most valuable skill you can bring to the table, especially like if you're, say, I mean, any level, but especially like if you're like a AA player and you can bring like a nasty jump serve to the table, like that's a pretty dang good skill to have. Because I feel like most people, they like do passing drills, but when you're the server doing a passing drill, you're just like popping floats in. And no one really thinks about becoming a really good server. And I think it was funny because my boy, Joey Keener, He's like the first guy who was one of the first guys who worked with me. And before my first open tournament in Florida, he was like, listen, man, like your skills are not nearly good enough to be playing an open. So why don't you go serve like 50 balls a day before this tournament? And that'll be the one thing you can control. And we ended up making the finals. And Joey was like, all right, well, if you just listen to everything I tell you, then it's going to work out pretty well. But I would go with serving. I think people just kind of forget it.
The story sounds like Travis, the kid Travis from Volleyball for Milkshakes.
I might have pulled some things from reality.
Sounds like it. For me, the most underrated skill, the thing that comes to mind, and it's not like the most important skill, like serving might be, you know, but I think the most underrated skill is like blocking footwork, to be really specific. I don't think people realize how important it is. Like I got really into it with hide-in, and we got pretty intricate with it. And then, so when I stop, you know, making these good habits and I'm not doing the moves, I can really tell, like, holy crap, it fully like takes me from an elite blocker to an average blocker. And I think some people just never really think about it. They're just like thinking about what they're doing up above the net, and they don't realize that your feet your base needs to be under you perfectly to get your maximum jump, right? And then obviously you want to be in the right spot to make whatever move you're making up top. It's like how coaches talk about passing. You have to pass before. Passing is the most important thing for hitting, right? It's the same thing. Like without the footwork, being in the right spot, the stuff up top is not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to ask you a follow-up then, Trey, because I think that you have some of the best like blocking feet of anyone that I've watched film on. And I think that's a considerable amount. How do you work on your blocking footwork then? Like if I'm a blocker and I'm trying to work on my blocking footwork, like what are a couple of things that I can do?
Well, I think first of all, so let's say on the sand, when you're doing blocking drills, do the feet first. Like don't even jump. Go through the motions of the feet, and when you load, get down to, like, I'd watched game footage of myself and it, like the balls that I'm blocking my best games, and I know I blocked this ball, and I see where my feet are, how deep I am, what angle my body is, and like I didn't know my feet were so narrow. When I'm blocking really well, my feet are like 3-4 inches apart.
Yeah,
which is like kind of weird for like someone who's 6'5", right, or with really long legs. You think they'd be a little further apart. But that's how I get my most explosiveness. So now I'm doing those footwork things before I do my blocking, and we kind of ease into it. You know, it's like Steph Curry will go, I watched his master class for basketball. He goes and shoots from 2 feet away from the basket. Every shooting routine, okay, 3 feet, 4 feet, you know? He eases into it, and he makes sure he has the fundamental down before he gets to the more complicated, intricate stuff. So for me, I just think do the footwork first, do it right. Once you have it right, then do the real blocking, but make sure the feet are right first. So now you're getting reps doing it the right way. You're teaching your body how it feels. The other way is in the gym, like me and my trainer constantly simulating real blocking moves. And then I'm visualizing, okay, I'm blocking. So I get the blocking footwork, I get the blocking feel, I touch the ground the way I block. And then it's just muscle memory. Like the more you do it, the more it's going to feel like it's going to translate into the game. So, yeah.
Just
absolutely.
Taking notes.
Yeah, and I just did a YouTube video about it on my personal YouTube.
Which is at what? Just try Bourne on YouTube?
Try Bourne, yeah.
There we go.
Expanding.
I love it. Sav, what about you? What do you think?
I mean, both are interesting because I feel like serving something that I need to work on the most. I feel like I've always been the type of player that's like, I want to get my serving because I don't want to just give them a point. I'd rather get my serve in and be scrappy defender. But that when you get to the higher level, that doesn't work. If you don't get teams out of system, like you're playing a really good team, you're kind of screwed. So that's something that I really needed to work on and have been working on, during the past couple weeks during this fall, whether it be a gnarly float or a short serve or like a deep, like pop one deep in the corner or even a top spin just to put some spin on it to make it harder to set. Stuff like that is totally important. And then I also got some blocking reps, and I need to talk to you about it, Troy, because I have no idea what I'm doing. So it's good to hear from you. I'm actually learning on this podcast. The footwork is so important because I don't really know what I'm doing, but we want everyone on the team to be flexible, and who knows if I need to split block or defend. We don't know, especially with COVID. If someone gets COVID, you never know where you're going to be. So I've split blocked before, but it's always just like front the hitter beside you can. I never really thought about the footwork. So that's super important. And then for me, I think setting is so important too. And it's something that I haven't worked on enough. I've always been a bump setter, and I'm transitioning into more hand setting. I'm a pretty big deep disher, so it's not only squaring up and following through, it's setting on top of my head and not at my chin. I mean, there's so many little intricate things in volleyball that people don't realize that can make you go from a good player to a great player, and it just comes with obviously time and experience. So, I mean, I could go on, but Mike Lessel asked a question which kind of piggybacks off what we were just talking about. He asked, what are the best ways to learn the X's and O's and strategies of beach? So is it reading a book, watching film? What do you guys think? Because, I mean, obviously repetition and practice, but what are the best ways to learn kind of the basic stuff?
That's such a good question. For me, it probably differs the way you learn. I think there's so many different types of learners. For me, it is putting myself in as many situations as possible, which is playing as many tournaments as possible, but then watching film as many tournaments as possible to see what other players are doing in those exact situations, and then seeing what I could have done better. Because if you look at I think actually Try and Trevor are a pretty good team for me to watch, because we're all the same exact type of build. We're all like 6'4", 6'5"-ish, sort of undersized blocker, kind of, and I'm not even going to pretend to be a defender, but we have to be pretty strategic in our defensive moves, because we're not really going to make a ton of plays like Anders and Oleg Stoyanovsky can just run a standard line block the whole time and don't have to get too tricky because they're enormous. But I think that watching how Try and Trevor call a game with their blocking and what moves they make and when, like talking to Todd Rogers about this was fascinating, because when he was playing with Theo, he would just let cut shots go the entire set. And then when it was like 15-14, then he'd get the cut shot and it'd be 16-14. And then he'd get the cut shot and it'd be 17-14. And Theo would be like, why'd you wait so long? And Todd was like, well, I don't need to have an 8-5 lead. I want to have an 18-15 lead. And so it's just figuring out when to make the right call. And so, and that's just like playing tournaments. So many tournaments that you put yourself in these situations and you learn when to set up the high line shot, when you just like, when you wait to run that 4, because you know that the high line's coming. So I think the more you put yourself in that situation and just watch and watch and watch film, and you see what other players are calling and how they navigate the game, I think it just sort of comes to you. And it just takes years of just doing it and watching.
Yeah.
Just time.
I think Travis has a super good perspective on it because of how you entered the sport late, and you're kind of behind on everything. You have a lot of resources because you have access to all the top players, but for me, like a lot of it, when you talk about me and Trevor deciding what to block, I'm like, we've just been playing it forever. Like sometimes there's no strategy to it. You might think there is, but we're just like, I'm just like, I don't know, I feel aggressive, and it's like a feeling thing. Like I'm just gonna block ball. Like, hey, screw the plan. I'm gonna block whatever I want. I'm just gonna feel it because the other stuff's not working. So it's basically saying let's just wing it and trust our instincts. I feel like a beginner of the sport right now. I've been hitting up a bunch of people to watch film with them. I'm trying to learn how to watch film better and get more from it. And what I've noticed is I think I was trying to learn too much all at once. Like I'm going to watch Todd Rogers and then almost subconsciously, you feel like at the end of the film session, you're going to like understand what he does.
Right.
And it just doesn't work like that. So it was like breaking it down to where I have a 2-hour film session and I'm watching like the weight distribution of the defender, you know, and just being okay with like, that's all I'm getting here. That's all I'm going to watch. And then I'm going to practice, and maybe I suck at, you know, I'm not doing everything the right way like I want to be at certain practices, but I'm there to learn and teach my body what it feels like to have that weight distribution and see if it works for me, see if I want to apply it. And now you have like you're 3 days in and all you did was work on weight distribution. But like, especially at my level, it's like just getting that little bit, that little something that you picked up that week or that maybe that practice. It's rare that you pick up something big in one practice and you're able to apply it. But it's like picking one thing really small. So don't pick like volleyball strategy. I'm going to learn that today. Like that's a lot. I don't even know what that is. I'm trying to learn all that.
It's long.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So like work on chapter 1 first, and then stick with that for like a month or months, you know, whatever it is, however long. And then when you feel like it's kind of applying itself, then move on. And obviously you're not going to just stick with one little thing. Like you can jump around, but I think you have to be realistic about how much you can learn. It's not only about learning it here, it's about applying it, right? And that's muscle memory stuff. So you have to teach your body what it feels like.
Yeah.
And then you have to get rid of the old habit as well. So yeah, take your time with it.
I had a question just kind of on my own going off of that. Do you guys think that, you know, if you're trying to get to a high level, do you think you're going to learn the most and get better if you're playing with you and your partner and like you just playing doubles and playing against people and just focusing on your partnership? Or do you think you can improve a lot if you're playing 2s, 4s, 6s with all different people, mixing it up? What do you guys think about that? Because especially during COVID right now, I feel like it's hard. People are at home and it's harder to be with your partner a lot. And obviously there's not a lot of 6s tournaments going on, but
right.
There's some 4-on-4 tournaments that I kind of want to talk about after this as well that I think are amazing. So do you think that you can go out and play with a bunch of random people and you still improve your game as much as you would if you were just focusing with you and your partner and a coach?
Yeah, I think it probably depends on what you're learning, right? Like, so if I'm learning blocking and I go out there with Chris Crab and the Nooners, right? The Crab's dad, Crab Boy's dad, it's probably not going to be great practice. But if I go out there and play with him and I play defense and I'm kind of playing like hop and shoot and seeing where he goes and how he's utilizing his speed, like, cause I mean, he's like in his 70s, but he's still making these really smart moves and putting himself in good positions. So if I go play with players like that, I'm going to pay attention to that stuff. I'm going to try to simulate what they're doing and why they're doing it and see if I can try to learn something new. If I'm playing 4s, it's more that hard-driven defense, right? Blocking, you have to work on those big steps. But I don't know. It depends what you go into it with, because sometimes you just like, it's beer volleyball, but you're not really thinking about what you're doing. You're just laughing and having fun, which is great. There's a time and a place for that. But are you getting better at volleyball? Probably not, realistically. And then you just have to figure out, are you there to have fun or are you there to get better? If you're there to get better and not have fun and you're better off resting, then you should probably be resting. But for me, I always say that I'd like to play for fun a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a fine line, especially if you're very focused on doubles, like, and you're training at it full time. You have to put a ton of time into doubles and those specific skills. Because, like, take an indoor national team player and let's go play 4s. He's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Take an indoor national team player and let's go play 2s. They're going to be tragic, probably. So it's just very different, the skills you're working on.
I'm a pretty firm believer that anytime you step on a volleyball court, you can get better at volleyball if you put your mind in the right spot. So, like, say you're playing ace at 16th Street in Hermosa, there's a very good chance that you could get worse at volleyball that day if you're just like out there to drink, but if you're out there playing ace and you're setting, for example, and you're letting someone else drink for you, and you're like, all right, I'm going to work on back setting hand sets, right? So Savvy, you're working on hand setting. That could be a great opportunity for you to get better. I played a fours tournament in Florida, which is just like a fun party tournament. And I was setting, but I learned so much from playing against Taylor in the finals. I've never seen someone tool that successfully that many times in a row. Like I had no answer for him. And so for me as a hitter, I was like, all right, I need to learn how to do like what was Taylor doing. So I actually like watched some of the film from our fours match just to see like how Taylor was approaching and swinging to tool me and Cody Caldwell like 20 times in a row. So I think that as long as your mind, you're putting it in the right spot, you can always get better. But it's very easy. Like if you're just playing like sixes or ace or whatever, like, yeah, I mean, you can let it go. But I think in terms of twos, if you're just playing with all different people, I think that's a great opportunity to get better, because I think that you can get better with all sorts of different personalities on the court. You can find different sets. You can play different sides. You can play different positions. So I think that as long as your head's in the right spot, you can always get better.
Yeah, totally. And I think too, I mean, once you get to the higher level and you have goals of winning tournaments, playing AVP and FIVB, it's probably more important to focus on doubles. But if you're younger, I always tell girls that if I'm coaching younger girls in high school or middle school, to play indoor as long as they can, and beach, because touching the ball that many times and being with that many different personalities and coaches helps. It'll just make you better regardless. So I think at different ages it might shift, but I agree that with both of you that if you're in the right mindset and you're going there to get better, you can, regardless of what you're doing. Even if you're just peppering, I can get better hand setting if I'm just peppering. So that's super important. And I wanted to talk to you about the 4-on-4 tournaments that are going on. Delaney's killing it, it looks like. So what do you guys think about those that are going on? Because they look so fun.
The McKibbins are like killing it. This is like year of the beard. And we got to get Maddie and Riley on to talk about the Amazing Race. But yeah, like they're on the Amazing Race. Maddie got engaged. Riley's going to have a kid. They had the fours event up here. They put on the KOB. The McKibbins are awesome, and they're just putting on like all these fun events. I think the fours event in Hermosa was like such a cool way to end the year for everyone, because it's just like a really fun tournament. It was really competitive. Like the teams that played were really good. But it was also just like really fun vibes in 16th Street. They got some Texas people to fly in, so they got an opportunity to play high level ball out here. I don't know. It was really cool just to like see what the McKibbins have been able to do. Like they've put on like 3 events in Hermosa, which is that's a lot for this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome, and I was looking forward to playing fours. They just couldn't put it on until after I was gone. Hi. But
Clean diaper.
oh, here we go. You got a fresh diaper, don't worry. All right, time to go. The daughter was here for those of you on only on the audio. Fours are awesome. Like, I mean, like you were saying earlier, like Taylor's really good at tooling the block, you said, right?
Yeah.
It's like you were saying, Savvy, is like, how does he know how to do that? It's all his time he played indoors, right? And now fours comes out and you get to see the hybrid of his twos game mixed with his indoor game, both which are really elite. And so for me, that's what it was like. That's what it's like for me to get to play fours, which is always bummed that I was back here in Hawaii. But yeah, like you can play middle. You get to have a little bit more of that indoor team camaraderie. There's a lot of opportunities to get better in an environment like that, right? Where you're playing for something, whether you're betting for like, I don't know, $50 or something. As long as everyone's like trying to win and compete and play at a high level, I think there's a lot of opportunity to get better. And fours is fun. And the argument here, I think that the McKibbins are making is it more entertaining to watch for fans? And they get to kind of figure out what people like based on how many views it gets, right? So if a 4-man video blows up versus the 2-man KOB that we did, they're going to keep doing 4-man videos. And that kind of shows you where our sport's at and where the fan base is at.
Yeah.
So who knows? I don't know, but yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunity to get better playing both. And I'm for sure am in on the next one. I was bummed that they had Team Hawaii without me. Trevor's on the bench.
Oh, that's awesome. But I mean, yeah, I think it's interesting because it's just something new, I feel like. And that's why I feel like people love watching doubles and love going to AVP events. But when they see a 4-on-4 tournament, it's like you don't see that as much. You may see a 6-man here and there, but like the fours is just so new. So I think that's probably why the videos might be getting more views or people more interested, because it's just cool. And I think, you know, for me, I've never really played an AVP tournament, and it's really cool to see like all of these professional players playing together, like seeing Spawns and, you know, play with Delaney and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, it's so fun to see everyone coming together. And it really shows the sense of community that the beach volleyball world has, which I think is awesome. And I think people love to see that. So, I mean, I love it. I think it's rad. Are they killing it on the Amazing Race? I haven't been watching it. Are they dominating or what's going on?
It. Like they're doing so well. It's really funny because I don't want to have any spoiler alerts, but they've like formed this. So I watched The Amazing Race like as a kid growing up, so I like loved the show, and they formed this like alliance with 4 other teams that's like I'd never seen before. So like there are teams like stopping in the middle of the race to go back and like if it's a trivia question, like tell the other team the answer, who then tells the other team in the alliance the answer, then tells the other team. So they're just like this pack of 5 is just like moving on together.
Right. They're trying to like be the final 4, and then they can all be like, okay, alliance is off now that we've made it this far.
Yeah. So they're killing it. Super fun to watch.
That's so cool.
Have you and Gab been watching Try?
That's so cool.
Yeah, we've been watching. It's been hilarious to watch.
Yeah. I try to like not be biased. I'm like, all right, well, if I didn't know Maddie and Riley watching the show, like would they be my favorite team? And I'm like, gosh, I want to say yes, but my little brother, his favorite team is D'Angelo Williams and Gary Barnridge.
I love them too because I watched D'Angelo for years.
Yeah.
And they just keep like talking shit to each other.
They're great. I like them, and I like the blondes that just keep hanging on. They're on like their 6th lifeline.
Well, I'd love to hear Trevor on the show. Just like every interview, just talking shit on.
I need to start watching because even my grandma's like, the McKibben brothers are on The Amazing Race. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like I need to start watching because it seems awesome.
It's crazy what they're doing with the sport, like the path they took in terms of like we talk about it a lot. Like, don't go down the volleyball pipeline just because you're supposed to and because everyone else has done it. Like, create your own path through the volleyball world, and they've done that in such a good way that it's paying dividends. I mean, they're like the most popular people in our sport now all of a sudden. And when they came out, I was like, you guys like want to train? Like, how are you going to do this? How are you going to get like to the top? And they're basically like, they didn't tell me like, we're not going to try focus on volleyball, but they're like, yeah, we're not really going to like do all that stuff, training the national team, all that. I'm like, so how are you going to make a living? Like, sure enough, a few years later, they're like the most popular people in the sport.
Yeah, they've done a great job of it.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads into another question that I thought was interesting. And I mean, I kind of look at you guys as like role models and people I can kind of ask questions to. But Rohan Chatella asked, what are the financials of being a professional beach volleyball player in California, like rent, food, etc.? And that's kind of something that, like, you know, even I want to know about because it's something that I am trying to do, and I know it's not easy. So, you know, obviously they're making a living by carving their own path and doing their own YouTubes and all these different things. So, you know, I'm sure it's pretty hard if you're just playing volleyball, because if you're not dominating every tournament, how are you making a living?
I'm going to pass this one on to Travis because pretty sure he wrote a book about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
he literally wrote a book about it. So Travis, tell them.
Yeah. The first beach volleyball book I wrote, We Were Kings, kind of digs into a lot of this, just about how like people kind of do that qualifier grind until they either make it, which most do not, because I mean you have to be pretty much on the USA stipend really to be comfortable enough to be making a living in the sport, or doing something that the McKibbens are doing where you're getting a lot of it's not passive income that they're making, but they're able to leverage their platform in the sport to then fund their way to play. So I mean, the financials, the vast majority of people, I would say 95% of beach volleyball players will lose money playing beach volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to, I mean, if you're like looking to get into it, the best thing I would recommend is learn how to like make a sponsor packet to send to sponsors and really learn how to create value for them. But most players will have pretty much like a full-time, part-time job, like not a career. Because then like if you're like a waiter, you can say work 50 hours one week and 10 hours the next when you have a tournament, and then go work 50 hours the next week and 12 the next week when you're going to Manhattan for the tournament. And then some players like Sheila Shaw has always had a career, like a 9-to-5, and she can only train in the evenings. And so she's always been like lower tier main draw, but she's been able to make a living as a career doing, I think she's in real estate now, like kind of doing marketing stuff. So most players will have like either a part-time job or 2 part-time jobs that they can just sort of like switch hours to make their tournament schedule work. Or I have the blessing of working remote, and I can write from anywhere in the world. So I've never had to take a day off to play beach volleyball, because then I just will either write 10 stories the week before and schedule them to post while I'm playing. So it just looks like I'm doing 100 things at once when I just worked harder one week. So if I had to give any advice, I would say try to find a job you can work remote, and you can sort of make your own schedule, because then you can work from tournaments and it's not really a huge bother. But it's crazy to see what everyone does. Like Eric Zahn lived in a van. I lived in a garage for 6 months. You're talking about maybe living in the Forerunner, which I think would be awesome.
We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen, but COVID is causing some issues with the housing, so I don't know what I'm going to do, but, you know, we'll see what happens.
I think you gotta, like, that's like great advice from Travis, and I think he really understands what it's like coming out. But an important thing is, because I'm thinking of like some people come out and they're coming off of being elite college players, and that's a little different than if you're just trying to work your way up through the, you know, whatever, AA, AAA system or CBVAs and all that stuff. So you have to really gauge where you're at and where you think you can finish, you know, and then what kind of living will come off of that. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, I want to get to this point. Should I invest my time in getting my time and money into getting to that point, and that money, and then it'll pay for itself? Or should I invest more in, you know, just becoming solid where I'm at? Or like, I don't know, you have to figure out where you're trying to go. Because at the same time, as much as I'm like, yeah, like be realistic and you should get a side job. I also think you should go all in. Like if you think you can be on the national team and get to where I'm at, a lot of the top people are at, where they don't even think about a side job, you got to go all in on it. It's like our buddy Will Montgomery. He was a great player. He gave himself kind of a timeline, but it wasn't exactly a time. It was like, I'm going to go all in and do whatever it takes to at least attempt to get to that point. And if I don't get there, then I'll be realistic and get that. He went and became a fireman, and he's doing great with that now. But don't cut yourself short either, you know, where some people are like, oh, I'm just going to dabble in it. Like if you dabble in it, you're going to be a dabbling player. Yep. Dabble level player. Whatever that is. If you're coming off of collegiate volleyball and you're one of the top players, well, look at what the players in front of you have done and how quickly they've moved up, and set your bar there. You know what I mean? And that, for me, that comes with learning how to be a professional athlete, because you're going to be a full-time professional athlete. That's where you're trying to go. So study that game and invest your time in all those things that come along with it, which is a lot of stuff we talk about here, you know, the studying the game, lifting, nutrition, something that I don't think a lot of players have thought about, and I'm extremely grateful that I thought about it fairly early on, is think about the business side of things. Like the kids are doing it. it's paying dividends for me now. I started years ago, like just trying to learn. I was like, I'm going to get an agent, not because I think I'm that valuable, but because that's where I want to be. I want to have an agent, have the agent teaching me things and helping me learn the business. And so then down the years, once my wins started coming, I was all set. I was ready to go. I had the agent in place, and then the sponsorships came. And I understood what that meant and how to talk to these corporations and like understand what they want and figure out what I can do for them and learn that whole game, which is huge. These people are investing money into you, so you have to understand what they want. And you have to learn that before you want the sponsorship, right? Because you have to be able to go into the meeting and understand this stuff. So just understanding that side of the game, media as well, is really important, especially in this day and age. Public speaking, which you're doing great with, just learning this kind of stuff. You're going to be in front of camera. If you shy up on camera, they're probably not going to call you for the next interview. You want to be on camera because brands want to be on camera. So like if you have your brand on your hat, you're going to want to rep it. That kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But you have to gauge where you're at. I think that was a long answer to that.
I think that's an awesome answer. And you know, Sav, I think this kind of applies to you too, in that your athletic prime is only so many years, right? And you can work, you know, you can be in the media till you're 80, right? So, I mean, I always look at that whenever I think about like, oh, you know, I could probably be making a little bit more money if I wasn't trying to play so many tournaments. But then I'm like, well, I have maybe 6 or 7 years left of being able to do this at a pretty high level. And then I have another 60 where I can work, you know? So I'm like, all right, well,
Exactly.
you know, while I can play beach volleyball, like I'm going to play beach volleyball and do what I can, because I think that also, and I think as a creative yourself, you'll find that to be incredibly valued, the experiences that you have they become such great material for you. In that every time I go to a beach volleyball tournament, I come out with some of the best stories that I'll ever write, not because like I'm becoming a better writer, but because the experiences that I'm having, you can't miss when you're writing about it. Like it's so easy. So I think that, you know, especially for someone like you in the creative industry, like for you to just get out and kind of go all in and grind a little bit to make it work financially, like you'll come out 10 times better, and it's going to pay so many dividends, even if you don't see the immediate return on that investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, you guys both brought up good points, and I actually just talked to Zana the other day, just catching up, and I'm like, you know, how's volley? She's like, well, it's just tough because right now there's nothing going on. And she goes, I might have to get a job or something. I might have to become an adult. And it's hard to hear that because she's such a good player. And, you know, I've played with her, I played against her, and she did so well in her first year on the AVP tour. And it's like, geez, this is just a tough year right now. But it's true that if you're going to go all in and you want to get to, like, obviously there's the AVP, but there is a next level. And if you want to get to the next level, you do have to go all in. And it, you know, you might struggle for a little bit financially, but you got to believe in yourself. And so it's hard to hear people like Zana, who's so incredible and so talented. It's like, gosh, I mean, people are really missing out on some amazing opportunities this year. So it's like, do you be patient and wait and see what this next summer looks like, and, you know, and keep training super hard and going all in, and hopefully there's tournaments? Or do you kind of sit back and get a job and like build up your finances so you can pay for some travel and stuff? I mean, it's all just a balance. It's time management. There's so many things, and it is just dependent on who you are and where you're at and what you really want to do. Because if you really want to do it, you do have to go all in. And, you know, I'm getting asked the question a ton, like, what are you going to do with your life? My brother literally asked me today, and I was like, can you not word it like that? I don't like when you word it like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. It's just, you know, obviously crazy times right now, but I just answer him like, well, I want to play volleyball. It's what I want to do. And that's what I am planning on doing, but I can't be like, I think I'm going to do it. I got to commit to it if that's what I really want to do. And obviously I'm trying to do these little interviews on the side, and it's hard with time, and I'm still taking class and everything. But yeah, it's it's just a learning game. And, you know, as you get older, you get better at it. But I think too, getting an agent or just at least learning about the business side is so important too. I mean, I could go on and on, but it's just, there's so much to it. It's not just like a 9 to 5. There's, you know, you got to plan your schedule.
Yeah. And I tried to get
yeah.
an agent early on and it didn't work. But like my experience of trying to get one and realizing, oh, maybe it's a little early or whatever, that agent was like, hey, it's not a right fit right now. Like the value's not there. It's not mutually beneficial, but if you ever have questions, just hit me up. So now I had an agent to access when like text questions, what do you think, this, that. And then when the next opportunity came and I had a meeting with an agent, I was like fully ready for it. And he's like, okay, let's do this. So it really is like investing time and being ready for it to pay small dividends over the years that are going to compound. Because like I remember having the same thought. I mean, the stuff that I was doing, I was like, I don't know if this is going to pay off. I'm just doing it to do it because I want to learn new stuff. And now down the line, I'm like, wow, that set me up. Everything I was doing back then fully set me up, and it's so hard to see in the moment.
Just got to be patient. Just got to be patient.
Patient. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think time management, it's something you learn in college, but it continues to go all throughout your life. And you guys are doing this podcast, obviously, on your free time. So Joe Messer, if he asks, what have been or what are the biggest challenges to doing this podcast? I think that's another interesting question. It's something that you're doing on the side of everything else you're doing. So what have been some of the challenges? And you know, I want to ask too, what have been some of the amazing parts of it too?
Well, I think one of the challenges we're looking at it right here. We got East Coast time, West Coast time, and Hawaii time. You know, and this is semi-frequent when, especially, you know, when Try's on the road, we either have to record way ahead of time and stack up 5 or 6 episodes, you know, when you're going from Oosterwoude to Warsaw to Stade to China to wherever, you know, and we can't connect. And I know how hard it is to do these podcasts on the road, even though like you have so much free time when you're at those events, but like the last thing you want to do is try to figure out the time difference to do a podcast and then interviewing another player. Mm-hmm. And like so now when you're on the road, I just like try to leave you alone because like you got a job to do. But I think that's
really easy, right? When we were in the beginning, like, dude, I'm on the road with all the top players in the world. Let's do it. And then I get in there and I guess you don't realize like you're dialed in the entire time. Like if you're in your room chilling, it's because you want to take your mind off and you're not like, there's intention behind every second almost, you know? Yeah. So yeah, that did become difficult.
So I think that's kind of our main challenge is that, you know, because Try's on, you know, he's at the top 1% of the world. That's his focus, you know, and this podcast, even though it's once a week, it is hard to do once a week because then we also have to get another player who's open to doing a podcast, and we have to figure out a time. So we either have to plan ahead or we just wing it, which is somehow we've done this for 3 straight years, just winging it. It worked.
It's worked great for you guys.
Yeah. It really has. And that kind of brings the flip side of that coin that you mentioned, Sav, is that like, what are the rewards of it? And, you know, for me, you know, if we're talking about like, you know, what we're thankful for this Thanksgiving, like when I look back in the last 3 years of this podcast, like, I mean, I've gotten like beach volleyball 101, 202, my master's and doctorate degree just from being in the same room as all the best players, you know, not just even in the country, but in the world on this podcast. And I get to pick their brains. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this show, I was going through the transcripts and putting together the highlights of what a lot of the guests have been saying. And I was reading it and I was like, oh my God, like this is just like absolute gold. Like the stuff that Brandy Wilkerson was saying to Kelly Reeves, to Mike Dodd, to Reed Pretty. And you're looking at these names and you're like, these are the greatest players currently and the greatest players of all time. And we've gotten to talk to them and just like ask them whatever we want. So even though like, yeah, some of it's challenging, but it's also the challenges are also fun and kind of hilarious. And then the rewards of it are, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's priceless what we get out of the show.
Yeah. And I mean, talk about investment of your time, right? Like what we did was we were able to find something that worked well to our strengths, right? Like I had, right before the podcast started, I had invested a lot of time. I took classes and learned public speaking. I took broadcasting classes and then I spent that whole summer on the AVP Tour broadcasting. So I knew the sport because I put in my time, and then I learned how to talk about it. And that's all I had. And that wasn't good enough to start a podcast. But then I met Travis, and he kind of filled the void, and we made the podcast based on his strengths in addition to my strengths. And I think that's the biggest thing, because like I honestly could not do this alone, and I wouldn't do it. It's just the whole writing part of it that he's really good at, I just don't have time for or want to do. And luckily I happen to have, you know, my whole phone's full of all the top players because those are my colleagues and whatnot. And so it's just like the perfect combination. I think for people, like, I wouldn't say start a podcast because you like podcasts. Start a podcast because it works to your strengths. And like every little thing that comes along with it is like, yeah, I'm down to invest my time in that. But like what we talked about, the biggest thing is we're investing our time into this podcast, but we're learning too, right? All this knowledge, everything I hear, it's somehow building up a database in my head and helping me become better at the main thing, which is me trying to become as good as I possibly can at volleyball. So I'd say for other people, if you want to do like a little business venture, like figure out your strengths and work within that, what we call the blue ocean, right? Didn't you recommend that book to me, Travis?
Yeah. I think you might have recommended.
Oh, maybe
I think you recommended Blue Ocean Strategy, but I'd heard of the concept before of just like creating your own market, which at the time we kind of did because there was no beach volleyball centric podcast. And they're really, Rob Espero runs one, but we're still kind of the only like beach volleyball only focused podcast. So when you're a market of one, you're automatically the number one ranked beach volleyball podcast.
Yeah, so don't try it, people. No, just go for it.
I have a question. I was just thinking, who have you guys learned the most from, whether it be on or off the court? Who have you guys learned the most from during your podcast? Someone that like really stood out to you personally?
Gosh, that's a great question. My default answer would be Try. I've gotten to spend the most time with him. I don't know if that's cheating or not.
Every episode.
So I would say Try. He was our first guest, and I, during when Try lives living in California, I get to see him like a couple times a week, and get to pick his brain and hear what he says. Not like, I also love listening to the questions that you ask other guests, like the stuff that you're curious about to make you better, because you're, a couple levels up from where I am as a player, but then like I'm seeing what you're asking so you can raise your level, and not just as a player, but like also what you're curious about as a human being. So I would say Try, and if that's cheating, then I would say Mike Dodd.
Well, I'd probably have to say Dodd too, but I do film sessions on the side with Dodd over this COVID time. So and then I write down what he says, and then I go over it again. Because I just like the way he sees the game. I honestly can't pick one person though. Like from an actual podcast episode, I can't like recall a bunch of stuff that one person said.
Yeah.
I think the way that I know that their podcast was valuable is like when I bring it up on another episode. I'm like, remember Misty said this?
Yeah.
Like, remember this or that? Like, I remember April having a great one. Phil had great ones. All the old school. Everyone. There's so many good ones.
Yeah.
I've honestly learned a lot from Travis, just to see the way that he approaches things from where he's at in the sport, and the way that he's going about his. Look, you did like what the McKibbins are doing. You didn't have to be the best player to make a living. You created your own way of making a living in the beach volleyball world. And I think that's amazing. I'm trying to do that.
Strategy.
Exactly. I'm trying to do that for myself and figure out obviously the podcast is that for me. But I want to go beyond that and like do something really impactful and big outside of the sport, which is why I'm kind of trying to dabble in everything. Starting the YouTube, I got the Instagram, like trying to figure out what's my thing. Instagram's been tough to grow for me. I get like Trevor's getting more followers than me. McKibbins are tripling me. When I first came out, it was me. I was like, oh, I'm higher than all my friends. And then they just all passed me. I'm like, I guess that 18 to 24-year-old
you're like, dang,
crew doesn't like me. I don't know. now I appeal to the dad parenting community maybe. But like, yeah, just figuring out creative ways to do things. So I'll say my podcast partner.
Love that. Appreciate that. And speaking of the new dad community, congrats. We got to give
you guys.
We got to give a congrats to Stafford Slick for having Camille Christine, his new kiddo. Nick is about to have a new baby, and Betsy's going to have one. So all sorts of new parents this year.
Good luck.
Oh.
It's so funny hearing Nick talk about it. It stresses him out so much. But like deep down, you know, he's like so excited. Like that's the thing about kids is like they make your life so complicated, but deep down it's like, but I want another one. It's like, when it's good, it's so good that you're like, yeah, who cares? Like, let's do another. It's so weird. You'll like be complaining, but then
Travis, are you gonna?
Well, Delaney's the breadwinner. If she's winning tournaments, we can't have the breadwinner having kids.
Yeah, you gotta carry this one, Travis.
Yeah. Dude, try it. Delaney was laughing so hard when you said that. You're like, well, can you carry it? I was like, yeah. I would if I could. And then, you know.
Gabby tells me that all the time. You got the second one.
Yeah. So Delaney, it's funny because Savvy, you know, we kind of mentioned this earlier about, you know, having the full-time playing commitment versus financial job. And Delaney's been like having a hard time wrestling with that, but her winning that QOB in Florida, she's like, okay, you know, maybe I can do this. Like, I'm pretty good at this. So she's like, that kind of pushed her over a little bit to like take volleyball as like maybe like a full-time thing. And then we're gonna have to switch it. So I'm gonna have to focus a little bit more on paying rent.
That's the other thing like that comes up is like timing, right? In our sport, it has so much to do with timing. Like look at Stein, right? He was good. He came out when the tour was fairly down, I think, like early 2000s, late 90s or whatever. And by the time he was peaking, the tour was on a really big up, and he had a great peak of his career, Olympics, all that. But if he had peaked in 2008 or 2009 when it went down, his name recognition might be a little different, you know?
Yeah. So
like to understand where the sport's at, where it's going to be in a year versus 2 years versus like for me, I'm looking like 4 years. Like I'm going to want to be that top guy, you know? Maybe not. I mean, next year I want to be the top guy.
Right.
But is it worth investing your time in? Is the tour getting stronger, which I think the domestic tour is, world tours all over the place. I don't know. But timing also is a big thing. So like to be taking your last year of college, for example, now this year is pretty good in terms of timing because you weren't going to get paid anyway.
Yeah.
No, exactly. My parents, I'm like, because it's been so up and down, and I had to drive to LA today to get a COVID test. It's just like the COVID test and the protocol, and I'm driving, waking up at 4:30 and driving. I'm like, is this worth it? I'm praying, is this worth it? Like going back, like I'm taking these random classes. Like, what am I doing with my life? I love UCLA. I love the girls. I love Stein and Jenny. Like, is this where I'm supposed to be? And every time I ask it or I think it, I'm just like, well, what else would I be doing? It just makes the most sense to have been given that opportunity and to take it, because why would I pass up another year of free training and free class and, you know, stuff like that. So again, timing is everything, and you just got to be patient, and hopefully it works out for the best. I mean, everything happens for a reason, but you know, you just got to be patient. Like you were saying about Delaney, like you're getting a little worried about it, and then you win a tournament and you're like, great, I'm feeling confident again. You just got to keep pushing through and keep believing, because it's all worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a ton of questions left. Should we just save them for the next one?
I would say let's pick one more.
I think
we can ramble a little less on the last one.
Either one more finishing question, or we can go like Thanksgiving Kumbaya style, and everyone says what they're thankful for in Thanksgiving. Savvy, your choice.
I know what Travis wants.
I have a funny one, actually.
Yeah.
I have a funny one, and I kind of want to do this thing for you. This was a quick one, but Joe Meserve also asked, he said, how come ESPN will show cornhole and shuffleboard but not beach volleyball? I thought that was kind of funny because I cornhole on ESPN all the time, and I thought that was pretty funny because there's no beach volleyball, and that's, I guess, kind of like what the McKibbins are doing, trying to get the sport to be growing, but, you know, it'd be nice to see some replays and stuff, but you're not seeing it a ton.
So
I've been trying to figure it out.
I met Joe a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome to get to meet him. So Joe, if you're listening, it was great to meet you a couple weeks ago. And so I think what people don't understand is that cornhole and like drone racing, they pay ESPN a fortune to be on ESPN. And I think that Donald is savvy enough with money to understand that if Amazon is going to offer them money to be on Amazon, or they could pay millions to be on ESPN, then Amazon's the way to go. So like, it's not like ESPN is paying cornhole to get cornhole on ESPN. It's the other way around. And that's the way that beach volleyball was for a long time. Beach volleyball paid NBC to be on NBC, and then they had to make back that revenue via selling commercials. Amazon paid the AVP, which is a perfect flip of financials where the AVP is now bringing in revenue rather than putting it out. So I think that the AVP is actually in a way better spot getting paid to be on Amazon, which is arguably just as big of a platform as ESPN is these days, if not bigger. So I would say forget about ESPN. Like, Amazon is awesome. Like, I'm all aboard the Amazon Prime train.
Well, plus you can go back and watch old matches, and like, I mean, Amazon's the best place for our sport. But in terms of why cornhole is on, besides the business part of it, I mean, I think that things that people put on TV and what people watch just have to be relatable, right? So like, cornhole's a big trend in the US right now. So if I'm playing cornhole at all these barbecues in the backyard, and then all of a sudden I can go watch the best guys do it, I'm going to stay on that channel for a bit, right? So they're kind of just playing to that. It's not that the sport's great or it's entertaining at all. Drone racing is like, how many new era kids are into drones and video games and all that? Like, it's just like playing to a trend at the moment, and there's investors that are willing to put their money out there to say, I'm going to see if I can put this out there and turn it into a business opportunity. But I highly doubt that they're making much money off it. Although video games are making bank, from what I understand.
Crazy.
Like, kids are watching other people play video games like it's freaking the NFL or
the amount of revenue they bring in, which we promised we wouldn't ramble, so I won't get into it, but it's nuts.
Well, and anyone can play cornhole, right? You're playing cornhole in anywhere around the whole U.S. You can't play beach volleyball anywhere around the U.S. So like, they're just trying to relate to something that everybody does. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been asking myself this question, and it pisses me off every time. This is bullshit.
Well,
I play on ESPN Top 10. What the hell? This
obvious answer.
Just caught the ball over his head. That's all I did.
The obvious answer is that cornhole is a more thrilling sport than beach volleyball. So no athleticism needed.
Just the raw power involved.
Well, Sav, thanks tons for hopping on with us again for another fan question episode, and thanks for bringing us in. We needed a new intro. It's been we had a new voice bringing us in, so we appreciate it. Thanks for
I love it. I love being here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You guys have a great Thanksgiving on the West Coast, and then is Hawaii the West Coast, or is it like its own coast?
Real West.
The real West Coast.
It's the middle of the Pacific. I don't know.
Yeah.
We out here.
So to the West Coast, to the real West Coast, happy Thanksgiving to both y'all's families. Tell Gab and Naya I love them. Hope to see you guys soon.
Will do.
And I will catch you guys later. Shoot.
Happy Thanksgiving,
All
everybody.
right. See you guys.
Later, guys.
Shoot.